What is common between Pirates of Caribbean, Vikings, and British Empire? Well, they all have maintained a formidable navy with which they dominated the history for centuries. They governed water bodies for empowering trade and faster mobility of armed forces. Indian history had some finest empires in the world, and contrary to the popular belief, India had naval empires which contested for influence and trade in naval Silk Route. From Indus Valley civilization to Maratha Empire, India has been famous for trading via sea routes. Chanakya, the great Indian strategist and philosopher, emphasized on existence of navy to protect maritime trade. But south of India, empires like Cholas broke the foundations and went beyond trade by establishing naval empires in Southeast Asia with their powerful navy. But internal rivalries demolished their power and continuous naval dominance never happened. With arrival of Portuguese in 15th century, Indian coastal areas erupted into a battle zone which would continue until British took over India. In the words of famous Indian historian Jadunath Sarkar, nothing proves Shivaji's genius as a born statesman more clearly than his creation of a navy and naval bases. Shivaji spent his childhood studying the topography of Deccan and knew the benefits his main enemies Mughals and Portuguese got from western coast. And thus he undertook gigantic task to create his own navy, which at the end of his life was comprised of 88 warships and 700 merchant ships, and soon Swaraj or self-rule was declared, and an import tax was introduced on every merchant ship at Konkan coast by Marathas. This brought Marathas under direct conflict with both Mughal in Gujarat and Europeans in Malabar and Bombay. Sarkhel, which means admiral in Marathi, was the head of Maratha navy. Kanhoji was from Koli community of western coast who expertise in fishing and shipmaking. They were inducted by Shivaji to make Maratha navy and govern coastal forts. Kanhoji's father Tukoji served at Savarnadurga coastal fort, and thus seamanship was introduced in Kanhoji from childhood. During reign of Maratha Chhatrapati Sambhaji, he was promoted to commander of Savarnadurg fort at age of 18 in 1685. And in 1698, he was made admiral or Darya Sarang of Maratha navy. Shivaji and Sambhaji used the Maratha navy and defeated Portuguese and Siddhis, both of whom were Mughal allies. Thus, Kanhoji leadership widely saw actions against British East India Company. Kanhoji's main aim was to dominate the Maharashtra coastline, for which he developed sophisticated network of naval forts. Most famous ones were Vijayadurga and Kolaba, which were heavily armed with up to 70 cannons. Initially, he had a navy composing 60 warships and 4 shipbuilding complexes distributed across heavily armed forts. His strategy was to use his fast-moving gallivats to do swift multi-directional attack on European ships. If he succeeds, then they capture the ship and bring it to one of his ports and ask European merchants to pay fine and taxes. But if he does not succeed, his fast-moving boats outmaneuver European warships and disappear in thick forests or one of their forts at Maharashtra coastline, making enemy attacks ineffective. He remained active as figure of naval resistance from 1698 to 1720. During this tenure, he earned himself fearsome respect from Europeans and got many to serve him, which gave him better idea of how to counter English navy. Some of his astonishing feats were destroying British warship East Indiaman Bombay, capturing Kandheri Island from Britishers. In 1712, he did most daring work. He captured the ship of Bombay President of East India Company and held it hostage until British accepted his demand of surrendering 10 coastal forts and giving heavy ransom. A joint attack on Vijayadurg fort by Portuguese and English navies combined under English commander Thomas Matthews failed miserably by Kanhoji's tactics. At last, British sought for peace and signed a treaty with Kanhoji Angre. And this is how Kanhoji became the master of Western Coast and remained its victorious ruler by defeating combined navies of major European powers. Our Indian Navy has paid respect to this lost legend by making one of his fort as Indian Western Naval Command called INS Angre.